Hi, everyone. Welcome to the ISEP Current Student Panel. We are very happy to have you here. If you want to put in the chat where you are going for the spring, we would love to hear it. You don't have to. We just are very interested of where everyone is going.
Cool. Somebody
Tokyo.
going to Tokyo? South Korea.
Ooh. Ooh. So
One for
far,
Canada.
ooh, love it.
If you're
If
just
any,
joining us, yeah, you can put where you're going in the chat.
and then
Awesome.
any questions you have, you can put them in the Q&A section for us. So that way we can keep track of your questions and kind of know which ones we answered and which ones we didn't. So questions in the Q&A, where are you going in the spring? Chat, please. Yeah.
Oh, such a good mix. We've got somebody going to Lille in France, somebody going to Cattolica, somebody going to Iwa in South Korea, Linz in Austria, New Zealand, somebody coming to the US, going to Virginia, Freiburg, Chester, Malta, American College of Thessaloniki in Greece, Nottingham Trent in the UK, Jyväskylä in Finland, Thammasat in Thailand, Usal in Buenos Aires. Cool. Somebody going to Montevideo in Uruguay. Awesome. Valdosta here in the US. Great, what a great mix. This is awesome. Alajuin in Morocco. Awesome. Great. Okay, I guess we'll get it started. Jackie and Cynthia, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I'll introduce myself first and then I'll let Cynthia take it away. But hi, everyone. My name is Jackie D'Amico, and I'm one of the Student Services Officers for the United States, and I'm also today's moderator. So Cynthia, take it away.
Hi, thank you. I'm Cynthia, and I'm also one of ISEP Student Services Officers for programs in the US. So thank you everyone for joining. Before we begin the panel and hear from our current students, we just have a few reminders about your acceptance package. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to complete your ISEP acceptance package. It's located in your ISEP account. Click on acceptance package, and then you'll have 3 weeks from the time you receive it to complete it, although we do advise completing it earlier if you can. There are 3 sections to review carefully: the student contract, the medical form, and then the acceptance payment if that's applicable to you. So that's for exchange. And then with ISEP Direct, again, your acceptance package is also in your ISEP account. Your acceptance package for ISEP Direct has 4 main sections: the student contract, the medical form, the program deposit, and then finally enrolling in ISEP's health and safety program. And that's also for ISEP Exchange as well. So just a bit more in detail, your acceptance package has a student contract. This has program information about your program dates, housing benefits, meal benefits, so make sure to read everything carefully. You'll also see your contract of participation. So this has important info from your host university and ISEP. You can also review our placement, conditions of placement there as well. And once you've reviewed everything, you can electronically sign to confirm that you've read all of the information, and then your ISEP acceptance package will be complete. So the medical form is an area where you can make note of any medical history or any medical needs that you would require while on program and that you would like ISEP to be aware of so that we can assist you further. Also, be sure to complete the acceptance payment if applicable. So your acceptance will only be processed once you complete the acceptance payment. And so you can find that invoice on your ISEP account and just click on invoices and payments. With ISEP Direct, you will have to complete a program deposit. And again, your acceptance can only be processed once this is completed. And then you'll enroll in ISEP's health and safety program or health insurance. For direct students, you have to enroll before you are considered accepted. And for ISEP exchange students, you will enroll and pay the fee for ISEP's health and safety program or health insurance after you are accepted. So you should pay this 45 days before your program start date. And now we are going to turn our attention to our amazing panelists. So these are current ISEP students who are studying in different places. And now I'll turn it over to Jackie, who will introduce them and moderate some questions for today.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So our panelists today, we have 6 of them. So first is Mackenzie. She is from the US and she is studying in the Czech Republic. We have Selma from the UAE and she is studying in the US. Keza is from the US and she is currently studying in Spain. Carly, again, is from the US as well, and she is actually studying in the UK. Drew from the US as well, and he is studying in Italy. And last but not least, we have Zainab, who is from the US and is also studying in Spain as well. So thank you all 6 of our panelists for being here today and just taking time out of your experience. So my first question is just going to be, what was your arrival experience like? And I'm just going to start with Mackenzie, if that's okay.
Hi, everybody. So for my arrival experience, I think the actual travel from getting from the US to Prague was really the hardest part, because once I arrived, it was very easy to get from the airport to where I was supposed to be, because some people from my school met us at the airport, the arriving students, and then had a special driver drive us directly to our apartments. So that part was pretty straightforward. Once I got to my room and started unpacking, the reality of it kind of sank in, that I was in this completely new place, surrounded by these new strangers I was living with. And I was a little bit sad that first night. It was the hardest, but in unpacking and putting up the pictures that I brought from home and talking to my parents, telling them how I was, and it was also starting to get to know my roommates, it helped a lot. But it was definitely hard those first couple hours, I guess, of being in this new place.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said you had students from the university meet you at the airport. Did you coordinate that with your host coordinator, or was it something that you had planned with current students there?
My host school sent out some information before arrival about what arrival would look like for us, and told us that they would have students in there, like wearing stuff with their logo on it at the arrival section of the airport that we could easily see and meet up with.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that definitely sounds like it would be very helpful to know and everything. So thanks, Mackenzie. Selma, if you want to talk about your arrival experience coming to the US.
Yes, I'd love to. So similar to Mackenzie, the hardest part was traveling, because I'm coming from one side of the world going to the other. So it was a whole like 24 hours of flight. So that was the most tiring part. As soon as I arrived to the airport, there is a shuttle bus that generally takes students from Denver to Greeley, which is where my university is. It's a city right next to Denver. As soon as I was in the bus, I kind of relaxed. And on the bus, I actually met other exchange students as well, going to the same university. So that was also very like helpful and welcoming. As soon as I arrived, I was able to check into my dorms. They were very helpful. They walked me to my dorm. They let me know what I needed to do, anything that I needed, they provided me. So like pillows, blankets, things like that. And similar to Mackenzie, as soon as I was in my room, I really sort of like settled in. It was a bit sad at first, because it's very like daunting being in a very different country so far away. The time difference is really big. but as soon as you settle in, you start to calm down and try to like rationalize your thoughts, see what your next steps are going to be.
Yeah, and I definitely agree that traveling sounds like it would be so exhausting. So you're totally right about that. Thank you so much, Selma. Keza, how was your arrival experience going to Spain?
So I would definitely have to add to the kind of same note that everyone else has been talking to, that that was definitely the hardest part, because travel in itself is just stressful. You just want to get where you're going. But I was actually traveling with my roommate from Virginia Wesleyan University. So we had each other the entire time, which definitely helped to relieve some of that stress. But the way that we arrived was actually, instead of going directly to our university, our airport was in Barcelona, which is about an hour from Tarragona, where our university is. And we decided to spend a couple days there to get to know Barcelona before we actually went to Tarragona, because we actually had a whole month before our classes started when we arrived. But I would not advise doing that, mainly because, like they were saying, that you could take a deep breath once you were settled in the place that you were meant to be. We kind of didn't have that the first 3 days. But overall, it was a great experience getting to explore Barcelona. But we have so many opportunities to go back after we arrived that it was just a little bit stressful, because you get off the plane, you want to relax and things like that. We didn't really want to be thrust into travel exploration and things like that. But we did get some really cool pictures, like the one right there of me in front of La Sagrada Familia. But our taxi driver was so sweet. We also have something called it's called like a tandem tutor program at Universitat Rovira, and we are assigned mentors through that program. And our mentor actually picked us up at the train station after we were finally coming back from Tarragona, and that was so like stress relieving, knowing that there was a person meeting us there and they were going to take us where we needed to go, that we didn't have to figure out another mode of transportation. So that was definitely a relief. And then when we got to the residence hall, all of the staff was so kind and so sweet. And one thing that's kind of funny is that I feel like Americans in general, they're always like in a rush to get to the next thing. And so every time we talk to someone, they'd be like, tranquila, tranquila, tranquila. So which means like calm down. Like it's okay, it's okay. So it was just comforting to know that we'd arrived, we were okay, and everything was going to be fine in the residence hall, and that, well, yes, it was sad to leave our families and things like that. We knew that once we finally arrived in the residence, we were where we needed to be.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it sounded like as soon as you got there, you had like the support you need to, just take a deep breath, which is really important. So thank you so much. Carly, do you want to tell everyone about your arrival experience going to the US? I mean, excuse me, the UK. Oh, geez.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Carly. I had a good arrival experience again with everyone else. The whole travel day was exhausting. I had an overnight flight, so it was a very long travel day, and I was all by myself. I didn't know anyone going to the UK to my university, so trying to navigate being overseas by myself was a little bit of a challenge. But luckily, our school arranged someone to pick us up. So we had ambassadors from the university. They came and picked all of us up. And I actually met one of my roommates at the airport, which was really helpful and a little bit of stress relief because, again, I was by myself in a new country all the way across the world. And once we got to the university, we got to unpack, settle down, and reality still hadn't set in for me yet. It didn't set in for about a week, and I realized I was like, oh, I really am in the UK. Like, this is crazy. Um, and just being able to meet my roommate that I met at the airport and other flatmates was a really good experience, and just figuring out life together in the UK until our classes started, because we also had a month just like Kaza did. So we got to relax and travel a little bit and yeah, just figure out how life works here.
Yeah. I love how you mentioned that it was that feeling of, oh my goodness, I'm here, kind of happened later than everyone else. I think it's so important to mention that just because that shock happened right when they got there doesn't mean that it will happen for you. So I think that's so
Yes.
good to bring up. Yeah. Thanks, Carly. Drew, do you want to tell us about your experience arriving in Italy?
Yeah, so my experience is a little bit different from the rest of theirs. My university did have a car set up for me to get picked up in and taken straight to my flat, but unfortunately my flight to Italy got delayed, so I wasn't able to, I guess, have a service rearranged. So I kind of hit the ground running, which was pretty daunting at first. But once I kind of just took a deep breath, looked around me, realized that my world wasn't going to end, you just start to notice how everything is cleanly labeled. It's very easy to navigate. And I'm sure for most of the panelists now, their back and forth from the airport is like the back of their hand now. But yeah, it was definitely kind of a curveball right off the bat. But once I got to my room and was able to settle in and meet my roommates and start meeting new people around the campus, it definitely switched around and was definitely, I guess, a full circle experience.
Yeah. So for Drew, people who are watching the panel today and going, oh my goodness, what if that happens to me? You talked about how you overcame it, but how did you specifically get the car? Did you have to do an Uber? Did you kind of like hail a cab? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so after looking at what the Uber costed, I decided to take my chances with the public transportation, which is totally safe. I know you hear stories from other people about carrying your bags in through a big city, but as long as you kind of stay on your own route, no one will really, I guess, try picking on you or anything like that. But at least for Milan's setup, I know it's kind of similar to other airports, but you normally take a train to a central station where you then either bus or metro to wherever you're going throughout the city. But yeah, that process was very easy. It's very laid out. I assume a lot of the cities a lot of the kids are going to are very touristy as well. So understand that there's going to be a lot of options and that you're not just kind of left to one or two things to navigate the city.
Yeah. Thanks, Drew. I think that's really important for people to know that not your arrival may not be like the happiest or most easy experience, but just taking a deep breath and saying, okay, I can do this definitely helps. So thank you so much for sharing that. Zainab, I know that you are in Spain, but you're in a different part of Spain than Casa. So can you talk about your arrival experience?
Yeah, for sure. I am in southeastern Spain, and I flew into Madrid, and the flight was maybe 15 hours, so kind of long for me. I was pretty tired, but like Drew, or similar to Drew, my train was delayed from Madrid to Murcia by about an hour and a half, but they gave us all our money back, and we got a full refund because it was delayed that long. Um, but I would say the travel was the most stressful part, and trying to navigate the train station. Murcia is like a smaller city, maybe, or I mean, not Murcia, but well, yes, Murcia, but in Spain, I've noticed that a lot of people, even in Madrid, surprisingly, they didn't like speak English. I just thought in bigger cities they would. So trying to navigate the train station with Google Translate was stressful, but it was fun. And I forgot to mention, I actually came to Murcia or did the journey with my current roommate. She's also from Nebraska, my same university. So I wasn't alone, and that was really helpful. But getting to Murcia, I didn't really feel like homesick. Like, of course, I miss my friends and my family, but I adjusted pretty well coming here. And I just couldn't wait to be like in my new home in Murcia. And so I would say, yeah, the hardest part was the travel, but once I got here, it was all worth it. Um, and it was kind of a seamless transition for me. So
Yeah. And Zainab, you said that your train was delayed. So did you and your roommate just kind of figure out how to get on the next one? How did you, can you explain that process?
yeah, sorry, I trailed off.
No, it's
Must
okay.
be the nerves.
No, go
So
ahead.
so they delayed our train because right when we got to Madrid, there had been like surprise flooding. Like they weren't expecting it, the city, I guess. So yeah, the train was just delayed. We ended up finding the correct platform after like asking like numerous different people and like asking questions to strangers who were willing to help. But yeah, we did end up getting on that train. It was about, I would say, maybe 3 hours. It was a high-speed train. But then that's how I ended up getting to Murcia. Once I got to Murcia, we took a cab from the train station to our apartment because my university didn't offer like a pickup service. So once we got to our apartment that we rented from like a third party person, then that was that.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like some of you had that easygoing experience and then two of you didn't, but it sounds like you guys kind of like, again, took a deep breath and figured it out. Kind of going off of the language barrier. I know some of you are in a country where you may not speak the language. So can you talk about how you managed it, or if you knew a little bit of the language, how did you communicate? So we can start with Mackenzie, if you want to speak to it.
Yeah, sure. So I knew that I was coming to the Czech Republic, obviously. So this summer I tried to spend a little bit of time each day learning a little bit of the Czech language. And that was like, it was really fun over the summer. It was fun to like test out little phrases with my parents and stuff like that. And then coming here, it was like, I knew that it wasn't really going to make a dent in my understanding of the Czech language, and it didn't. Like, it's helpful to say like hello and thank you, and like I will order this at a restaurant. Like, that's super valuable. But when it comes to like when a local starts like speaking at you quickly, it just like I couldn't understand. So one thing that's been really helpful is just learning how to say like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Do you speak English? Or sometimes if they don't, you can like use Google Translate and type out your question and like show it to them. But yeah, the language barrier is a little challenging, but it's more interesting to me, especially because most people do speak English here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up kind of like preparing for it. You know, I think that's kind of nice, and that you learn like those little like keywords. I think that's so cool and kind of smart. Because that wouldn't have been the first thing on my mind. I've just been in there blind. So Selma, I know coming to the US, there can be a language barrier, but how have you been doing with it?
So for me, there isn't a language barrier, and that was one of
Perfect.
the things that kind of calmed me down as soon as I got placed in a US university. It was one less thing I had to worry about,
Yeah.
having to learn a new language, especially when arriving to the airport or trying to find your way around like the university and speaking to people and trying to understand things. That was one thing I knew that I could like, okay, I can settle down. I can speak the language, so I'm okay. So thankfully,
Yeah.
I didn't have a problem with that.
Did you, being in the US, I know we have like different slang words. Have you heard any of those where you were like, what are you talking about?
Slang, I mean, I watch a lot of American shows and we speak a lot of English back in my university too. So none that surprised me, to be honest, so far. If
So
any
far.
you do, I'll let you know.
Yeah, definitely let us know if there's anything you haven't heard. But thank you. Keza, for your experience, can you talk about if there was a language barrier, and if there wasn't, that's fine too.
Mine's kind of an interesting case in that sense. So it's kind of a two-part question. So for me, I hope to be a future Spanish teacher. My major is Spanish. I've been studying Spanish for a while and I have achieved fluency. However, my university is in Catalonia, and another language that is spoken in Catalonia is Catalan. So our university actually has a language policy where a majority of professors and classes are taught in Catalan, not Spanish. So the courses that I'm taking are in English and Spanish, but it does create this challenge with meeting locals and meeting new people, because there is a lot of deeply rooted Catalan pride where people, with given the choice, they would choose Catalan over Spanish. So for example, when I go into a cafe, I try to use the little bit of Catalan that I've learned to say hello, to do greetings, to say thank you, order at a table, things like that. Because while I do have this Spanish proficiency, I've been doing my Catalan Duolingo every day and working with some of my peers through our tandem language program to help really build my Catalan skills. Because one thing that was told to us when we first arrived at our university at our orientation was that even just making a little bit of effort to learn a little bit of the language goes so far, and really will make the locals be a lot more inclined to be welcoming and things like that, because it's showing that you're demonstrating interest in their culture and you're really trying to be a part of that global community, even though it may not be the language you expected from Spain, or maybe not as dominant as you would have thought.
Yeah, and you hit a really interesting point. I know a student asked, like, are your classes taught in a different language? So For you, you said it was English and Spanish, but
Yes.
outside they speak Catalonian. So it's a whole different experience. So thanks for
Right.
kind of touching on that.
Yeah,
Carly, I know you're,
wanna speak
oh,
to
go
that?
ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, is anybody else taking classes in another language other than their primary language? And if so, do you want to speak to that experience? Go ahead, jump in.
So I am taking the majority of my classes in Spanish, and there does exist a language barrier because I'm not fluent. I can speak and understand like conversational Spanish. I can definitely understand more than I can speak. Um, and that has gotten like better with time on both sides. But being in a classroom where the professors, and this was of my own choice, there were options to take classes in English, but I really wanted them in Spanish so I could learn. Um, it's definitely hard to communicate with professors sometimes because I'll want to say something when I'll be a little bit stressed about an assignment. When I'm stressed, my brain only works in English, so I can't like say a word in Spanish to save my life. And the professors here are really kind and understanding, but being Murcia is kind of like a smaller town. It's not like Madrid or anything. A lot of people don't speak English. And so the nice thing is that my professors see that I'm trying and they're willing to be patient with me. And then they also take steps to like, they'll be intentional about saying things a certain way so that I can like pick up on what they're trying to say using context or like familiar vocabulary that they think I might be familiar with. Um, but I kind of got used to it, and with time, it has gotten better. I think like initially just being okay with the discomfort, and then with time, like kind of learning to adapt to it has been really nice. I almost don't notice it anymore, even though it still exists. But it's a unique experience, and I don't hate it. Like I actually like it, so it's nice.
And could I
Awesome.
add to that just a little bit? Do we have
Yeah.
time? I'll be quick.
Yeah.
I'm taking about half and half of my classes English and Spanish. So, but also I did make a decision to drop from a higher level Spanish class to a little bit of a lower level. And I think one thing that's important about that is that you can go into the study abroad experience and you can try things, but also I think you have to give yourself grace with if you are struggling with things, there are always other options. So, me going from this super high level linguistics class that was fully taught in Spanish that I didn't know most of the terminology. I was really upset with myself at first that, wow, like I really thought I could do this, but I can't. But you're not a failure because of that, because think you're completely immersing yourself in another culture, maybe another language. It's okay to not be able to take the classes you initially thought you would, or if you feel like you're falling behind a little bit, you just have to do what's best for you. That'll make your abroad experience the best that it can be. So for me, making that decision to go down to instead of a fourth level class to a second level class, which was a topic I actually ended up being a lot more interested in, it was a political science class taught in Spanish. That decision really helped me and it relieved a lot of stress that I was feeling the first month I was here.
Yeah. I think I love that advice in terms of just giving yourself grace and being a little bit flexible with yourself and with the courses in general. Great. Okay, so we are having questions come in really quickly here. There's a lot of questions in the chat, so we're going to start digging into some of these. And I'm going to combine some of them that are on similar topics. I think the first topic that people are really interested in is about culture shock. And did anybody do anything to prepare for culture shock or to prepare to adjust to the new culture? Did anybody experience culture shock? And how did you move past it if you did experience it? Anybody can jump in.
I can if nobody else wants
Yeah,
to.
go for it.
So a couple things that were culture shock for me in Spain. The first thing is siesta. So I don't know if anyone's heard of the siesta, but it's a really important part of Spanish culture where for about 2 hours in the middle of the day, like business is closed, nothing's open, and it's kind of this time to be with your family, to go share a meal. And no classes are held during that time. So like the university is closed during that like small window. And I didn't really think it would impact me that much, but I have been so grateful for this time of just relaxation where no one really has to do work because it's just like a midday rest period. And that was something that I wasn't expecting because I feel like life in the US is so go, 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 and there really isn't a lot of time to relax, that was something I was really grateful for. The time change, of course, that was a very challenging part of culture shock because, you wake up in the morning, it's 9 a.m. Maybe you want to call your mom, talk about something, but it is 3 a.m. there. Your mom is still sleeping. So that's been a little bit challenging, but one way I've kind of been able to combat that is that I've scheduled a weekly FaceTime call with my parents in the evening on Sunday nights just to stay in contact and to just have a date set. Because it is so easy to be busy and to go off and spend time with your friends and do other things, but you really do have to make time for family and friends, even if that means carving out a time in the calendar and things like that. And then other things in terms of culture shock. I feel like life moves a little bit slower here and compared to like life in the US. Um, like I feel like in the US, people are always rushing everywhere they go, really in a hurry everywhere. But I feel like people, they walk everywhere, which, in the US, I can't walk anywhere. I have my car. I I where I live, there are no sidewalks. I can't walk anywhere. But here it's just like, everybody's taking their time and it's also so environmentally friendly here. Um, like reduced emissions from transportation and people just really having a focus on recycling and things like that. So definitely a lot of differences, but I feel like I've been able to adjust pretty well to them.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anyone else want to share an experience of culture shock and how you moved past it?
I can kind of piggyback off of one thing that she said.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I feel like, more of a European thing, whereas in America, you always feel like you're always on the go. And there's always like the next place to be and stuff like that. But kind of a quote that I guess I learned about for Italians is dolce far niente, which is the peace of doing nothing. And that is filled in kind of any aspect of their lives. And it's not just in essence of just going around sitting and just being lazy, but it's more so enjoying the peace of your walk to school or being on the metro or really any time that you kind of have to yourself. And it's kind of more of, I guess, like a self-reflecting moment. Um, One that I never really was shown until, I guess, kind of being in the culture here. But I wouldn't necessarily say it was ever like a hard thing to grasp onto. Ever since I figured out about it, it has definitely kind of made my time here a lot easier and a lot like stress-free.
Awesome. Okay, our next question. Well, we have a specific one for Carly about life in the UK. Did you get a student card for public transportation? How do you travel around the UK?
So in the UK, there's a lot of public transport, which is really nice. We have buses, we have trains, subways, um, airports everywhere. It's really convenient. So I do have a rail card. It's not a student card. It wasn't given to us by the university, anything like that. But I do have a rail card for the train. We have an app for the buses, so we can look at the bus schedule, the train schedule. Things like that makes public transport really easy and very accessible over here. So my friends and I kind of figured out public transport on our own. We just went to the train station one day. We picked a place that was 30 minutes away. We're like, let's go there. And so we just figured out the route on our own using the train and we didn't get lost, so that was good. And from there, we started taking longer trips for an hour. And we went to London the other weekend, which was a 4-hour trip. So just figuring out the public transportation is a little bit of a challenge in itself, but it's very accessible, very easy. Once you do figure it out, you can go pretty much anywhere you want in the UK, which is really nice.
I love the idea of a practice trip. That's very smart. I think
Yes.
that's a great idea. Okay, our next series of questions I'm going to pose to everybody, and they're about housing and your housing situation. So the first one is, who has a roommate and who has a room to themselves? Maybe we'll just do by show of hands. Can you raise your hand if you have a roommate? Okay, great. And who has a room to themselves? Okay, even split, 50-50. How do you think this has impacted your experience? If anybody feels like this has really impacted their experience?
I feel really strongly about this because I absolutely love my roommates. They're the best people to ever exist. One of them is from Georgia. I'm from Nebraska. So one of them is from Georgia. And then the other one is also from Georgia. We met because we were doing this study abroad experience. But I didn't know her before like my study abroad experience. We did like everything together when we first got here while we were kind of like figuring out the city, like the norms, that kind of thing. But the thing is, we developed like such a strong, like I would say almost like sisterly or yeah, sisterly connection. And so like we opt to do a lot of our travels together. We spend a lot of time together. We come home and like talk to each other like all the time about our days and everything. And I didn't really have that roommate experience before. So this is like one of the highlights of my study abroad here. And it heavily impacted my experience because it made this like apartment me feel so much more like home. Like it would have felt like home for me anyway, but having this like little family to come back to is like the best thing ever. And so I highly recommend it. I know a lot of students here though, like either from the US or just from other countries that ended up rooming with like people from other countries. So like they had a roommate from Italy, Poland, one of them was from the US and one of them was from like Colombia or something. And so they would speak in Spanish, whereas my roommates and I speak in English. That's like a lot of people would value to speak like the
their
local
main-
language more so
yeah.
they learn. Yeah, but we try to speak in Spanish. It doesn't always work out. But yeah, it's such a wonderful experience to have when you study abroad, and that's my opinion.
And for those of you who have a room by yourself, do you feel like you're still able to make friends in your residence or in your apartment?
Yeah, I was gonna jump in and talk about not having a roommate. So when I first arrived, I have a double room, which means I have two beds in my room and two closets and two desks. And when I first arrived, there was no roommate. And I'm not gonna lie, I felt a little relieved to have that space to myself, at least for the first week of like settling in, especially because I'm the eldest of three siblings. So I've always had to share. So it was nice to have a room to myself. I live in a pretty small like dorm, like residence hall. So, and I have a communal bathroom, and I have made so many friends in that communal bathroom. Like maybe all of my local friends I've met in that bathroom, just like at night when you're brushing your teeth or like in the morning washing your face. So honestly, for me, the experience has been really great having a room to myself because at the end of the day, I can go back and I just have my safe space. But at the same time, I have friends in that dorm building that I can like, go out with or meet in the hall, or they can come to my room. I can go to theirs. So I think there's a balance. I think there is merit to having roommates because you automatically have friends, hopefully sometimes. But there's also merit to having, a room to yourself. And plus I get double the space for free.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Okay. Is anybody in a homestay or with a host family? No? Okay. If you have questions on life with a homestay, you can always email your ISEP student services officer. Okay, so one student's asking for tips on balancing your class and your social life. So how do you all balance academics with, obviously you're in this new country, you want to experience life in your new country. How do you balance it all?
I can say a little small something. They kind of go hand in hand. You meet a lot of your friends through your courses, whether that just be doing projects together, group work, or even just talking to each other outside of class. That plays right into you guys planning a weekend trip together to somewhere close, or maybe taking a kind of farther trip, something along those lines. But other than that, it's very nice to kind of get like a study group as well. It definitely helps focus on academics while kind of building friendships from the people that you're going to be around for the next semester.
I
Awesome.
can speak on this as well.
Yeah.
I've had sort of like a slightly different experience from Drew in that when I'm at home in my usual university, I tend to be very, very focused on school, and it's sort of my whole life. And so coming here, I've been working on trying to balance both my outside life and my school life, because here I feel like for the first time, my experience outside of school is more important. And so I'm obviously trying to stay on top of my classes, and I'm enjoying learning and meeting peers, but I'm working on stepping back from making homework my first priority when I'm home, and instead trying to free up spare time to go do things with people and to explore the city. So I know that it's different priorities for different people, but for me, I'm working on the priority of not school while I'm here.
We won't tell your parents. It's okay. Okay, so that actually leads perfectly into our next question. So a lot of students, and one asked this question in particular, want to know about how it was for you all making friends, right? Because everybody wants to go out and explore their new city, their new hometown. So what was everyone's process like of making friends? How difficult or easy did you find it? Do you have any tips for how to make friends when you first arrive?
I can take that one a little bit. So, I lived in a residence hall for the first month that I was in Spain, and then I found a student apartment. So, in the residence hall, I feel like I was immediately able to make friends because when my roommate and I first arrived, there were only like 5 or 6 students in the whole residence hall because a lot of the students hadn't moved in yet. We started a month before class, but that group of 6 of us got so close and we did so many things. We got meals together, and that was a really cool experience to meet new people. But then also when we had our orientation, I remember just every new person I met, I got their Instagram, every single person I met. And then at the end of the day, we made this huge group chat of like 25 people on Instagram, and like every week people will be like, "Hey, I'm going out tonight. Anybody want to come?" or "Hey, I'm doing this. Anybody want to come?" So it's just this group of people that if you want, if you're available, you can go spend time with them, or if you're busy, it's not a thing of, "Oh, I'm missing out." Like there's always people to spend time with. And also kind of on the housing question just a little bit, while I'm in my apartment and have my own room, I have 4 other flatmates from all over the world, London, and I have people from Spain. And it's also been nice to just have those flatmates where I can spend time with and go, go hang out with, go out clubbing, go to the bar, whatever it is. So I would say definitely just every new person you meet that you enjoy spending time with, just get their number, get their Instagram, because you really should take advantage of your opportunity here, that you have so many opportunities to meet new people. But also our university has an international student group called AG, and they go on trips once a week, and they're super low cost. They're like $20, and they go to a different city in Spain every single week, and they're normally groups of about 50 or 60 students. And that's another really incredible opportunity to meet new people because you're experiencing something new together. You have a 3 or 4 hour bus ride the whole way there, and you can just sit with a new person and talk about where are you from, like what's your experience like, and that's been a really awesome way for me to meet new people as well.
Awesome. Anybody
Um,
else have tips on how you made friends? Yeah, go for it.
I
yeah,
can
I'd like
share. Oh,
to-
sorry.
Sorry. So I just like to mention, like adding on to what Kaza said, like all these tips are great. Also, you're going to study there, so you will be going to classes and you will be meeting people there. Most likely you're going to be applying for classes that you're interested in, so the people taking the class will also be interested in them. And I will tell you that you will be the most interesting person in that class because everyone will be so amazed at the fact that you're studying abroad and you're coming from a different country. So everyone will be looking forward to speaking to you. Like Kaza said, like anyone that, introduces themselves to you or you introduce yourself to them, try to get their information. Even if you never speak to them again, you never know. And my university also, like the global office, organizes trips, but those trips are open to other students, like local students joining the trips as well. So look out for any events happening on campus, look out for any organizations that are making events, join clubs, join, any of that stuff. Usually the first couple of weeks of university, there will be some sort of like welcoming events, at least for freshmen. I would say go to those, try to, meet new people there. But it's a lot easier than it seems. I know it seems very daunting because you're going to a very like different like place and maybe you don't speak the language, but I promise you, you'll be okay.
Awesome. Okay, our next few questions are about travel and specifically travel in Europe. So for those of you that are located in Europe, have you traveled around? Do you have any tips for doing so? Have you traveled by yourself or with friends?
I can take this one. So, being in the UK, like I said earlier, traveling is really accessible, especially around the UK. I've traveled so much every single weekend. Me and my friends pick a new place and we go there. Um, we've been to London, we've been to Leeds, Manchester, Wales, some smaller cities close to us, and we love traveling all over. It's really easy. You just hop on a train or a bus, and you're able to just go there. I haven't traveled anywhere by myself, but I have traveled as a group, so I definitely do recommend traveling with at least one other person. Definitely don't go anywhere by yourself, just for general safety reasons. I recommend traveling as a group. And as far as other countries, we're planning on visiting Ireland and we're going to Italy later in the semester. So traveling is definitely a lot of fun and it's very easy and accessible over here. And I highly recommend while you're studying abroad to just pick somewhere, go there and travel because you're going to have a great time wherever you choose.
And also
Awesome.
in terms of like affordability of travel, Ryanair and Vueling are your best friend. So my roommate and I, we typically travel together, but in our time in Spain, we will have visited 8 countries and 16 major cities in Spain. So we've actually already booked all of our hotels, flights, trains, and buses. We started out with this budget when we first arrived in Spain. We were like, all right, we're gonna plan it. This girl's trip is leaving the group chat. So I actually have my little list of everything. So we went to Bordeaux, France, and then we went to England. We've been to Andorra, and then we're also going to Portugal, Morocco, Ireland, and Switzerland. And then we've been to all kinds of different cities in Spain. So it's definitely accessible. I'd say make the time, budget, see what you can do because this is your opportunity. You're already on the side of the world. Go do it.
Yeah. Um,
Kisa, can I say that is so impressive? I would put that down on a resume. Like your planning abilities are so impressive. I could never.
well, it also leads perfectly to our next question of how did you budget while exploring the country or countries that you wanted to explore? How has everybody approached budgeting or planning for their semester abroad financially?
I feel like I'm answering a lot, so I don't want to like take it from someone else. Does anyone else want it?
I can say a couple things about it.
Okay.
One of the main things, this is maybe on the more serious or drastic side of things, but to really make sure that if you want to stay on a budget for a certain trip, yes, always bring a backup card or something like that. But something that's really helped me is having everything in euros or something along those lines, so you can kind of see, like right in front of you how much money you have left, how much money you have to spend, or have spent, and you can kind of go from there. Another thing is to pretty much have everything booked prior to getting there, whether that be hostels, accommodations, back and forth from the airport, or kind of any excursions you'll be doing while you're in whatever place you travel to. That definitely goes a long way and saves you a lot of money compared to just buying it when you are there or showing up to the front desk or anything like that. But yeah.
Um, okay, I'm jumping around a little bit. Um, there was a question about, I know Salma, you mentioned you did a school excursion. Has anybody else participated in an excursion or a trip sponsored by their host site? Yeah, cool. Has anybody participated in a buddy program sponsored by their host site? Awesome. Cool. So yes, either of those, if they're available at your host site, definitely recommend you check them out. Okay, there's a few specific ones. Drew, a lot of people want to know what dorm you're living in at Católica. There's a lot of questions about the dorms at Católica. Can you
Um,
say which
yeah,
dorm you're living in and how long is your commute to campus?
yeah. So I've been living in Bococa. It's Via Federica Sette, if you guys have the address yet. I would assume most people would be getting placed here. I know there's some other housing options, or not options, but housing opportunities that you could be placed in. But I've been living here for 10 months and there's, I guess, some flaws that I've had with it. The building itself is amazing. You have AC year round. Other than that, it's a very spacious room environment. You're not crammed in with any or with a lot of stuff. And I'm sharing a room with a roommate, and I still feel like I have more room than I did back in my home uni. Um, Now, getting to the school is difficult at first, to say the least, but once you kind of get your routes down, and become more confident with the area, you'll start realizing that you're not even thinking about it, and it's just becoming your daily commute. From where I'm at, going to the main campus, which will be probably Carducci for you guys, it's about 40 minutes via the metro, roughly 14 minutes walking, and then 30 minutes on the metro, give or take. Um, Other than that, the two main places you'll probably be at are in that general area, and then one other one that you guys could be placed in is Buonarroti. And there's multiple options. I'd suggest putting it into Google search, and they have a lot of options that you can choose from, routes to take, and just the available public transportation.
Awesome, thank you. We have a specific one for Salma about your home country, actually. One of our students wants to know, how is the public transportation in UAE? Is it easy? Is downtown Dubai easily accessible from Sharjah?
Everything is so easy in the UAE. If you're going to the UAE, you're gonna have such a great time. I'm not from there, but I've lived there my whole life. It is so simple. Taxis are very accessible. The public transportation is better in Dubai than it is in Sharjah, but getting to downtown Dubai from Sharjah is maybe like a 20-minute drive, less or more, depending on the traffic. Very accessible. I think you'll find it really easy. If you have any specific questions, you can ask, but in general, very easy. You can get on the metro, bus, taxi, Uber, or you can make friends with cars. Definitely make friends with cars.
Awesome. Okay. This one I think we can pose to anybody. So their question is, how do you find that the academics differ from your experience in the United States? Or for you, Salma, studying in the United States, how do you find that the academics in the US differ from your academics at home?
For me, I've honestly found it way easier. It honestly kind of feels like I'm on vacation. It's been a lot less stressful. I'm not really sure why. I can't really explain. Maybe like the people that actually study in the US can tell me why, but in comparison to my home university, I've been finding it a lot less stressful, more time to myself. It's a lot, but there is a lot more like participation in classes, which I appreciate. The professors here are very nice.
Awesome. Anybody else who studies full-time in the US and is abroad now have an experience? How do you feel like it's different? Yeah, go for it.
So, I take communications classes in the US and then I'm studying film in the UK, which are two very different subjects. And in the US, I personally find my classes to be a little bit more difficult than the ones in the UK. As far as the film-based classes, they're a lot easier. They're more hands-on, like group work, a lot more fun and engaging. I have a lot more free time here in the UK versus in the US. I have to write more papers, I have presentations, speeches, media campaigns. So I definitely think the academics for me personally are way easier in the UK. But some of my friends studying in the UK are studying like science and engineering. They find it a lot harder than their home country. So I feel like it really depends on your major for what country you're in, but personally, I find it easier.
Awesome. Anybody else?
I also like to share about my experience with that. I would say that, like the others have said, schoolwork, I would say schoolwork itself is easier. But adjusting to a different school system, was really hard for me because I never knew what to expect. And I was always like, surprised when things happened. And then I just learned to like change my standards, and that like to stop expecting. I was like kind of not realizing it, but I was expecting everything to be kind of like how it was in the US, because I planned for this trip, but the one thing I didn't plan for was how different the school system was going to be. Um, so that definitely like shocked me quite a few times, but I've just kind of learned to go with the flow, because like Keisha has said, people here are just a lot more like laid back. And even in like southern Spain, everyone things just kind of like go more slowly. So I learned to adapt to it. It was stressful, but definitely like making sure to ask questions to the local students and the professors, clarifying even when I think I know something, I typically don't. Like, so making sure to clarify is really important, because then I can turn in assignments on time and stuff. So that was like the hardest thing for me here.
Um, we have another question. We have a question actually about phones that I think is good to ask. How did everybody go about getting an international phone plan or SIM card? Or are you just using only Wi-Fi, or how does everyone approach, what has been your process with your phone?
For me, the global office at my university actually supplied us with SIM cards, which was very, very helpful. The fact that I didn't have to worry about that. And the SIM card had like a month like free, like unlimited data, unlimited like calls. And then after that, I had to like figure out renewing. But everything nowadays is very digital. There are also eSIM options. A lot of my friends, international friends, have eSIMs. That's very helpful. Some of my friends are just like roaming data from like their home countries, so they haven't really gotten SIM cards. So you have a lot of options. Just I would suggest like researching about the phone plans to the country that you're going to. What are your options, especially for location, because in some cities, some plans work better than others. So definitely research about that if there are specific ones. And you can reach out to your university, like your host university as well, and ask them, because they're used to hosting international students, especially if they're accepting ISEP students. So they will know, they have experience with that.
Awesome. Did anybody else approach the phone situation differently?
I can say something about my decision. I switched to Google Fi for the time that I'm abroad, because they had a good like international policy, which was cheaper than what I have at home, which is Verizon. But I actually would not recommend Google Fi, because you actually can't use it out of the US for the entire time that you have it, which I did not realize when I bought it. So I'm gonna have to figure something else out for the last month that I'm here. But it worked for 3 months. So if you're going for a short program, then that's a doable option. But just wanted to say that. Some of my other roommates, they made a joint family plan, international plan together once they got here. They just went to a local T-Mobile and they all signed up for a program together, and they call each other Sim siblings because they're on this family plan together. And that seems to be working out very well for them.
Awesome. Okay, we only have a few seconds left, so I'm going to just ask a few questions really quickly. Is anybody staying through the spring, or everybody's fall only? Okay. That's one. For planning your trips as you're abroad, planning to travel, as you've been explaining, how far in advance are you planning your weekend trips?
I'd say the sooner or the farther in advance you do it, the cheaper the trip will be all around. That goes especially for flights. If you are within like a 2 week window, I'd almost say doing that trip is just not worth it. Because if you wait another month from then, the flight will be probably half the price it is that you'd pay then. And that goes right with the hostels or any accommodations you end up doing to stay those, I guess, the duration that you're planning on going. But yeah, just the sooner the better. Um, or sorry, the farther in advance, the better. But yeah.
Awesome.
And if I could just add to that, I feel like
Yeah.
it's okay to, if you want to take a train trip, like maybe a day trip, decide the day out, because that's easy. Like for me, going to Reus or Barcelona for a day, super simple. Train tickets are $9. But if you need like a hotel, a place to stay, definitely farther in advance the better.
Yeah, that's great. Did anybody has anybody been making friends with locals, and have you faced any language barriers in doing that?
I can, oh, sorry, you go.
Are you sure? Okay. I've made quite a few local friends. They are some of my best friends. Um, they are the reason that my Spanish is as good as it is, because they don't speak English, and so I am forced to use my Spanish, which is good. But we definitely like go out a lot at night. There's a lot to do at night in Murcia. And they've like really helped me get oriented to living here. And Google Translate is a wonderful resource, and so is like hand motions when you're trying to describe something. So that's how I'm getting by, and it's great.
That's
For,
awesome.
for me, I'm in choir at my home university, and a lot of the people in the choir are actually like 30, 40, 50 years old, and they're all locals and they mostly only speak Catalan. So that has been a really interesting opportunity for me to get to know people. Some of them speak Spanish, like three of them speak English, but it's just been really great to have that opportunity because we're bonding, we're making music together, we're doing something we all love. And we're actually all going on a trip as a choir to Mallorca. So that'll be an even better opportunity for me to bond with those locals.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. Well, we are at time. We still have more questions that we didn't get to, but we are at time. Thank you all so much for your time. I'm going to turn it back to Cynthia and Jackie to wrap it up. But thank you all so much for sharing all of your fantastic advice.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mackenzie, Selma, Kaysa, Carly, Drew, and Zainab. Thank you so much. And Cynthia will just go over the last couple of slides.
Yeah, thank you all. For anyone tuning in, if you have any questions about your program, feel free to reach out to your ISEP Student Services Officer. We have their information listed here, but also you can find their email and phone number in your ISEP account if you just click on your dashboard. And then just a final note, we definitely recommend following ISEP on TikTok or Instagram if you're interested in just seeing more student content throughout the semester. We also have just reminders that we post there as well. But if you're also wanting to post any of your content, feel free to do so and you can always tag us. But yeah, we just want to thank everyone again for tuning in. And we hope you're excited for your upcoming exchange program or direct program. But thank you
Yeah,
all.
thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.